Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday to all of you. It is Saturday, isn't it? With this work, by the way, it is easy to get lost in these days. But yes, it is Saturday, and I hope you all have a great weekend. 27th of December, of course, 12 o'clock by Moscow time, middle of their day, and well, it is a Saturday, isn't it? So let's make this live stream in more casual style than usual. I hope you'll like this way, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments. And if you like the news segment, please click that like button, leave some commentary. Will be helpful to deal with the algorithm and also the friends before, of course, if there are going to be any questions or topics that you want to discuss that I will receive either through super chat on Rumble or through other support platforms, PayPal, Boosty, I will react on it after the news segment. And before I start the news segment itself, let me say thanks to John, dear friend, sir. I would not say full name because I don't know should I or should I not. But yesterday, John donated through Boosty during the live stream, and I highlighted that and I thanked him personally. Although later on, I see that John also subscribed to my page on Boosty, so I want to say many thanks to John for that additional supporter too. So thank you very much, John, if you are watching or if you will watch this video later on after the stream. Okay, that's been said, let's go through some news now, and I will start with reports about night strikes that Russian armed forces conducted on military, logistical, and energy infrastructure of Kiev regime's forces, Kiev regime in different areas of Kiev controlled territory, but as far as I can tell, main direction this time around was Kiev and surrounding areas. Quite a lot of videos are circulating on internet. Quite a lot of videos are circulating on internet about these strikes, including videos in which you can see some warehouses being burned down. I can see Georgia in Georgian, by the way. Greetings and wow. Many thanks to Aragon for kind words. Ურმესი მადლობა. მრავალს დაესწარით, აგრეთვე გილოცავ დამდე გახალწელს and შობას. Madlova. I'm responding in Georgian, by the way, to comment that you see probably in the chat on YouTube, and yes, there was a quite a large scale strikes. By the way, energy infrastructure was targeted, military infrastructure, number of warehouses where the regime was and their Western backers were storing some weapons. Armored vehicles, shells, missiles, and so on. And during the day, probably we will receive more information about this strike. I guess it was quite a larger scale. I did share on my Telegram number of videos, but yet again, there's so many videos on Telegram channels, by the way. I'm not going to share all of them, isn't it? RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, according to so-called media from Kiev-controlled territory, yesterday, after drone strike, as a result of a drone strike, head of a terrorist organization in Zaporozhye region. This is a Russian citizen, by the way, traitor, Russian citizen traitor who went to fight on behalf of Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists against his homeland. And you know, by the way, this number of traitors were selected or picked by Kiev regime and its NATO backers, and they created these so-called resistance movements, or they call them different names. One of them is being RDK, and they were using these terrorists and the traitors for attacks on Russian borderline regions, for other terrorist activities, also to recruit some people on Russian territory itself. And according to reports, this particular traitor was taken out as a result of drone strikes. So Denis Kapustin, the leader of the Russian Volunteer Corps, so-called Russian Volunteer Corps, was killed in a Kiev-controlled part of Zaporozhye region. Strana UA reported about it originally, and then many other outlets. It is specified that this happened on a Saturday night during the FPV drone attack. According to Russian Federal Security Service, FSB, Kapustin, a Russian citizen, participated in the combat operations on the side of Kiev regime's forces in the summer of 2022. He organized attempt to bomb and fuel an energy facility in Volgograd region, and in 2023 he organized an thwarted assassination attempt on Tsargrad TV channel founder Konstantin Malafeyev, and an attack on the Bryansk region. For the later, the court sentenced him in absentia to life imprisonment. So minus one traitor, by the way. Russian militaries did a great job liquidating this garbage scum of humanity. And all of them, by the way, all those traitors who are fighting on behalf of Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists, all those traitors that are working for foreign assets, all of them will be liquidated. All of them. None of them gonna find a safe haven anywhere on this planet. And I'm quite sure, by the way, in Russian security services, there is an entire delegated groups that are working to trace all these elements, right? And finish them off. Everything has its time, right? And time for this garbage was yesterday night. And he was liquidated. Good news, for sure. TASS news agency is also reporting that, more than 200,000 people deserted Kiev regime's armed forces in 2025 alone. More than 200,000. These forcefully mobilized people deserted Kiev regime's so-called armed forces. And by the way, just think about it. What is going on Kiev-controlled territory, and compare that to Western propaganda that people in Ukraine want to fight. They are asking for more money and more weapons to continue fight. Really? But I wonder if any whatsoever so-called media outlet in the West will give you these information that you are hearing on my channel and on many other channels on alternative media, including about tremendous level of desertions in the Kiev regime's forces. 200,000 just in this year, and overall number of desertions is either 700 to 900,000. It's a huge number, by the way. Could be even higher than that. And I remind you that according to a number of sources, Kiev regime in 2026, next year, by the way, plans to recruit 2 million people forcefully. At least they are planning to issue 2 million paperwork for recruitment. How many people they will actually be able to forcefully mobilize and throw into trenches, that's a whole different story. Not that many, but unfortunately, a couple of hundred of thousands of people in Ukraine probably will end up on line of contact anyways. And then best decision of their life will be to either contact Russian side during, in their first opportunity, and lay down arms and surrender, organize self-surrender, or just run away, as these 200,000 people did in 2025 alone. Quite interesting information, I think. And I wonder if this topic of manpower shortages and high level of desertions and low morale in Kiev regime's forces will be a topic of discussion tomorrow, this Sunday, between Trump and Zelensky, because they're going to have a meeting. Yesterday, I made an announcement during the live stream that according to some sources, such a meeting might take place on 28th of December, and the information was later confirmed by White House itself. So yes, it is official. U.S. President Donald Trump will meet with Vladimir Zelensky in Florida on Sunday. The White House announced, according to American leaders, schedule bilateral talks will take place at the 3 p.m. Local time, which is 11 p.m. Moscow time, or 2300 hours. Meeting will take place in Palm Beach. Journalists are expected to be allowed to attend. Okay, by the way, okay. Trump, during the interview, I believe it was an interview with the Politico, said that it's him that is making decisions, right? He said something on the line of Zelensky has nothing until I approve it, or something like that, right? And this is quite interesting because Trump basically confirmed what I was saying all along for how long now, right? That this is just a freaking theater that we've been observing, right, in past, it seems forever now, right? When there is some meetings arranged between Trump and Zelensky, or representatives of US and representatives of Kiev regime, and there is an imitation of hard talk, difficult talks and stuff, while in reality, everyone understands. These are puppets, right, of the Western ruling class that we are talking about. Zelensky, Umerov, and Yermak before him, and all of them, they are just picking puppets. Umerov, current head of Ukrainian negotiating team, is FBI informant, right? FBI informant. He agreed to cooperate with the FBI to avoid their sentence for corruption in Ukraine, right? For corruption allegations. And the Western propaganda, Western ruling class was trying hard, by the way, to persuade us that this is actually serious talks, actual talks. And Zelensky and his team they are tough negotiators, and Trump is unable to do anything, right, to persuade them to agree on this or that. But yesterday, I guess Trump did not even think of what he was saying, that he was destroying the narrative, while mentioning that it's up to him, really. Zelensky, who the hell is Zelensky, man? It's Trump that is deciding what Kiev's position is going to be. Okay, we knew this, but it is good to know anyways that Trump publicly acknowledges that, right? Although, of course, they're going to backtrack the statement if journalists will ask questions what you meant by this, right? But anyways, yesterday going to be these talks. But before that, today, we have this report that Starmer, Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer, had a phone conversation with the President of France, Macron, and German Chancellor Merz, and allegedly they discuss upcoming meeting between Trump and Zelensky. Probably they will try their best to prepare Zelensky to act in certain ways, right? But of course, whatever Zelensky gonna say, it will be position of a globalist, right? And subsequently globalist control regimes in Europe, UK, France, Germany, first of all. We all understand this, right? And so, yes, they had their phone conversation, but this is not all. Today, they're gonna have an additional phone conversation, maybe through video link between each other. Also, some other high-ranking officials will participate from Europe and Trump too, according to reports. For example, TASS news agency is reporting that European leaders, Zelensky and Trump, will hold a phone conversation today. So European leaders will hold their phone conversation with US President Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, Reuters reported, citing European Commission spokesperson. According to this spokesperson, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will also participate in a conversation. The meeting will take place on December 27th, or this talk, by the way, probably via video link, but anyways, it will happen today ahead of a Trump-Zelensky meeting in the United States. Okay, by the way, okay, and now everyone gonna speculate what is going to be outcome, of tomorrow's, either today's talks or tomorrow's a meeting between Trump and Zelensky. And I think we will see another U-turn, sort of, from Trump. After that meeting, probably Trump will fully adapt this globalist 20-point so-called peace plan that Zelensky published basically, and his regime published a couple of days ago. I went through all these 20 points in one of my previous videos, and I said straight away that this is non-starter, by the way, with the exception of few points there. There is nothing else that Moscow will actually find it interesting to even have a conversation. That's how off from objective reality that 20-point plan is. But I think globalists and globalist allies in the US, neocons, also Zionists, will use their influence, right, on current administration in the US. And after tomorrow's talks with Zelensky, I expect personally Trump to make another U-turn and completely adapt this 20-point so-called peace plan of the globalists, right? Which means, by the way, that US will, together with Europeans, will go ahead with the next phase of escalation. That could be not just military escalation, but also escalation through sanctions and all that kind of stuff. If anyone was hoping for the escalation, no, not happening, by the way. And tomorrow, and in upcoming days, generally speaking, we will receive more and more indicators that I was 100% correct when I was saying that these talks between representatives of Russian president and representatives of US presidents are a waste of time, because in no circumstances, by the way, in no circumstances, Trump and his team, even if they want to, by the way, going to be able to overcome pressure from globalists, Zionists, and the neocons. And by the way, they have quite a lot of stuff to blackmail Trump if they want to take him out, basically, either politically or even physically, if they find it necessary, right? So if anyone was thinking that Trump actually going to act based on interests, best interests of the US public, US citizens, United States as a country, no, man, he's not, right? And soon we will all see it with our eyes, right? That's what my expectation is, that yes, we are getting very close to next phase of escalation. Although Trump also said that he will have a phone conversation with the Russian President Putin too. Okay, another waste of time for Russian on Russian side. If Trump calls her, Putin will answer, most likely, right? But what is the point, man? What is the point? As I said, in no circumstances, by the way, Trump and his team gonna be able, even if they want to, by the way, gonna be able to de-escalate with Moscow, because they are absolutely on the hook of globalists, neocons, and Zionists, and they will do whatever they've been told to do by these forces. Period. Right? Period. There is no buts after that, and so on. There is no conversation after that. It's just factually accurate statement, right? So maybe either before conversation or yesterday, tomorrow's meeting with Zelensky, or after, Trump actually will arrange a phone conversation with the Russian president. But what is the point, really? To try and deceive Russian side once again? Not gonna work. Meanwhile, I think it is important to notice that on Vladimir Putin's order, top Russian officials had a phone call with their US officials following Miami talks. Once Dmitriev came back from Miami a couple of days ago, a conversation was arranged between Ushakov, by the way, and some US representatives. Names have not been stated by Russian side, but Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, did confirm that Russia and US held a phone call Following a special envoy, Dmitriev's visit to Miami, Moscow was represented by Putin's aide Ushakov. So Ushakov and Dmitriev are engaged with the talks with their American counterparts. Russian foreign ministry is kind of out of business, right, at this point, and I can understand why. Russian diplomats are sick and tired, I guess, with these useless talks with their American counterparts. And I remind you, dear friends, that rumors are that during the last conversation, phone conversation that was, I believe, Lavrov, phone conversation between Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, and the head of U.S. State Department, Rubio. Lavrov shut the Rubio down, right, because Rubio was talking some nonsense. And Lavrov actually make it clear that he has no time for nonsense, right? And he hung up the phone. Allegedly, this is rumors. And since then, Russian foreign ministry clearly is distancing itself from all this process that we are observing on a level of aides of the presidents of the two countries, right? So, okay, Ushakov had a conversation probably with the very same Witkov. Okay, and what? And what? Nothing, right? It's a waste of time, pure and simple. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal, by the Western propaganda, Western propaganda outlets, Western ruling class, it's beginning to confuse itself now, right? Because they are lying so much and about so many things that clearly their lines of propaganda, their narratives are beginning to conflict with each other, right? Because, for example, we have this report originally from Wall Street Journal that allegedly Russia is an El Dorado for Trump's inner circle. Okay. U.S. President Donald Trump see Russia as an El Dorado with their vast natural resources and rich investment opportunities. The Wall Street Journal reported on Friday, citing sources familiar with their thinking. And both believe that lifting sanctions and reintegrating Russia back into world economy could make money for U.S. investors and smooth out its relations with Ukraine and Europe, the newspaper wrote. And you know what? I don't know what is wrong with all these propagandists, by the way. Us, generally speaking, from US or from Europe, are not considering Russia or not seeing Russia as an El Dorado, as a land rich with the natural resources. That's all they see, by the way. They never see people here. They never see Russians. They never see Russian state. All they see is a land that is rich with the minerals, right, with natural resources. So what Wall Street Journal wants to say, that somehow Witkov and Kushner are bad guys, because you see, I mean, they are interested in natural riches of Russia. I mean, really? Is not these riches are reason why globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe are this keen to pursue their dream of achieving strategical defeat of Russia, then destruction of Russia, dividing Russia and capturing all these resources? Is not these natural riches are the reason why European aristocracies, European elites, ruling class is so hostile towards Russia? Or am I missing something here? It's crazy, man. It's just freaking crazy. Tragedy of the Western world is, and it is truly tragedy, because this will cost them existence, especially to Western ruling class. Tragedy is that they never see people here in Russia. They never see civilization and never respected this civilization. Unique one, by the way, in many ways. They only see territory rich with natural resources. And this ignorant attitude will bring down Western world eventually. And the process is already underway and accelerating, right? It's also factual. It is what it is. But yet again, Russia was never against cooperation with the Western world, in any field, including field of minerals, natural resources, whatever. Russia was never against cooperation. It was a Western ruling class that was unable to do business with Russia with respect. It was a Western ruling class that failed to see, recognize, respect Russian Federation, Russian state, Russian society, Russian civilization. And this is I think this failure is already is one of the key reasons of downfall of the Western world, for sure. And I remind you, dear friends, not just Russia was not against cooperation with the West, but if we go back to 20th century even, it was, I don't know, 50s? It was 50s, right? Late 50s, when Soviet Union actually first time exercised their idea of joining NATO. I mean, many people may don't know that, but Soviet Union was never that keen to be hostile towards the West, Soviet leadership, right? After all, during the Second World War, number of Western countries, at least, including US and UK, were allies of Soviet people, right? Allies of ours. And so it was late 50s, I believe, when Moscow first time exercised their idea of joining NATO, uniting basically under the certain one security umbrella with the Western world, but Moscow was refused. Then, towards the late 80s, I believe, during the Gorbachev era, this topic was exercised once again by Moscow, and Western ruling class ignored then too. Soon, Soviet Union collapsed, and the first Russian president, Yeltsin, allegedly also exercised the idea of Russia joining NATO. And once again, Moscow was ignored by Western ruling class. And then Putin, by the way, right? Current Russian president also spoke about Russia joining NATO and a whole bunch of Western institutions on numerous occasions, especially during the early years of his presidency, and he was refused to. And that ignorant attitude from the Western ruling class was one of the reasons why Putin went to make this historical speech in Munich conference in 2007. 2007, right? And very many topics that Putin highlighted in that speech, if you go back now and listen to that speech, you will see that Putin predicted practically everything that had happened, because Putin was warning Western ruling class what will happen if they will continue to have this ignorant attitude towards Russia and Russian interests. So yes, Moscow was always open for cooperation, but Western ruling class failed to acknowledge Russian civilization, Russian people, interests of the Russian people, and this is one of the reasons of the downfall of the Western world, for sure. And by the way, currently there might be some talks. As I said, there are Western ruling class and their propaganda is getting confused in their own now bias, right? And they are coming up with the narratives, false narratives, one after another, that are conflicting each other. And Wall Street Journal might saying in that article that, well, Washington allegedly, Trump and his team, they see Russia as a great opportunity for cooperation and stuff. And this is a kind of hit piece of on Trump, isn't it? Russia was demonized so much so in the West by propaganda that any positive attitude towards Russia is automatically translated into something negative, which is crazy, but that's how things are in the West, right? Although in reality, as I said, I don't believe that Trump or his team actually wants the escalation with Russia, but even if they want to, on a personal level, they're not going to be able to do so, right? And, well, there is quite influential forces that will not let them take steps that will be actually in interest of US and subsequently in Russia too. The escalation is in interest of both, for sure. And one of the and those forces, neocons, globalists, Zionists, they have plenty of tools to influence administration there, including chain dogs, by the way, that they have all over their Washington. Among them, Lindsey Graham, senator, right, who is calling Trump to, if Moscow wouldn't accept her ultimatum and that 20-pointer plan, so-called peace plan that globalists come up with, it's clearly ultimatum, by the way. So Lindsey Graham is saying if Moscow disagrees on that ultimatum, then adopt law. We are ready in the Senate. Congress is also ready. House is also ready. We can adopt legislations. Let's sanction not just Russia, but also Russian allies, Russian trade partners, China, India, others. And he's also calling for seizure of Russian tankers or tankers that are related to Russia, that are carrying Russian oil. So you see what's going on? That's what I'm saying, by the way. Do you think globalists and their allies, neocons, will allow Trump, Witko, for anyone else, by the way, there, to actually take steps, real steps on policy levels towards the escalation with Moscow? No way. Trump gonna be impeached, by the way, if he does something like that. He's gonna be impeached, right? And Lindsey Graham will lead this impeachment. He is acting like he's the best buddy of Trump nowadays, isn't it? I don't know why Trump is keeping him next to him. After all, Lindsey Graham condemned Trump for January 6th, isn't it? And blamed Trump for it, actually, directly. But yeah, that's U.S. internal policies. I don't really care what these morons are doing, but just as an additional argument of my point that in no circumstances Trump and his administration going to be able to do anything really that is not approved by these main forces in the Western world: globalists, Zionists, neocons. By the way, that's it. And Graham is just a mouthpiece for them, right? Graham is a talking head, and number of others that are issuing kind of warning shots, not just towards Russia, but first and foremost for Trump himself. Meanwhile, deputy of the Russian foreign minister, Ryabkov, stated while commenting on this 20-point so-called peace plan of the globalists that he commented about it and expressed his negative attitude, understandably so. This is a non-starter, by the way, obviously, as I said straight away. So 20-point so-called peace plan circulated by Ukraine, radically different from what Russia and US have been working on the last few weeks. Deputy FM Ryabkov stated imperative to remain within a framework set by Putin and Trump during the meeting in Alaska. Ryabkov emphasized, and yet again, you see, Russian side is still maintains this diplomatic attitude, and door is open for conversation, for diplomacy, obviously. But Moscow's position is very clear, and since forever, right? That there is certain steps that have to be made, right, for the escalation, and obviously one of the steps is going to be addressing root causes of the crisis. Because if root causes are not addressed, if Russian security concerns are ignored by the Western ruling class, then there is no way we're going to see the escalation, because Russian security concerns are important for Russia, not for Western ruling class. They demonstrated that a million times, but it is important for Russia. And the Russian leadership don't really has much options but to continue special military operation, continue to defend Russia from this war that West is waging against us, right? Only thing I would add is that yes, I can understand that this is diplomatic gesture, this diplomatic step, while Russian officials constantly are mentioning this Anchorage summit and the framework that two presidents worked on during the Anchorage. But come on, man, day after that summit, Trump probably forget about it. I mean, literally, day after that summit, Trump probably forgot about it. And even if not, no one gonna allow him to act on any agreements that will not be approved by globalists and the neocons and the Zionists, right? So this is just this constant recall of Anchorage summit from Russian side is I understand it's a diplomatic step, right? Just a reminder that we had some agreements, right? Preliminary agreements. Let's stay focused on that. But at the same time, I think Ryabkov and everyone else understands that it's impossible. It's just impossible, by the way. Trump is not an independent politician. He just can't do anything, right? Without permission of actual decision makers in the Western world, right? Trump is also a talking head, isn't it? That's all it is. Glad newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that Russian president stated about significant increase in the production of all sorts of weapon systems by Russian military-industrial complex. I can give you some numbers, by the way. Probably many members of our community will find it interesting. And so production of most in-demand military equipment, including munition and armored vehicles, has increased exponentially since the 2022 compared to 2025. President Vladimir Putin announced at the meeting to review the main parameters of the draft state armament program. The Russian president held a meeting to discuss the parameters of the draft state armament program for 2027-2036 and the defense industry development strategy. The Kremlin's Telegram channel reports during the meeting, the industry's performance results for 2025 were announced. Compared to 2022, the production of products and items in high demand during the special military operation had increased exponentially. The president stated the production of armored vehicles, for example, increased by 2.2 times, while lightly armored vehicles, such as infantry fighting vehicles and armored personal carriers, production of those vehicles increased by 3.7 times. Military aircraft production increased 4.6 times, more than 4 times, by the way. It's a big deal, isn't it? It's a big deal what we are talking about here. Automotive production by 5.7 times, and the missile and artillery weapons production by 9.6 times. We are talking about like unbelievable increase in the production, isn't it? Particularly significant growth was noted in the production of communications and electronic warfare equipment up to 12.5 times, and personnel protective equipment up to nearly 18 times. Weapons and munition up more than 22 times, the president noted. As reported by Vzгляд newspaper, Russian President Vladimir Putin also noted that significant contribution of defense industry workers to their country's development. He also noted that Russia has achieved success in developing unmanned aerial vehicles too. And yes, numbers are quite impressive, isn't it? Numbers are quite impressive. Russian military-industrial complex is demonstrating some quite significant achievements. And after all, dear friends, almost every other day, we are receiving reports, for example, about new batches of all sorts of weapon systems being delivered to Russian defense ministry, isn't it? Aircrafts, tanks, armored vehicles, artillery pieces, and so on. Quite often, I'm sharing information about it on my Telegram channel, Twitter X page, and during the updates too. But this is regular stuff nowadays, so therefore I'm not reporting all the time about it because literally it happens almost every other day, right? And on this very matter, by the way, Russian military-industrial complex is supplying not just Russian armed forces, but Russian military-industrial complex is manages, in many cases, right, to also fulfill obligations towards other countries too, in terms of deliveries of certain weapon systems. And for example, we have reports, and you can see on your screen right now, that batch of Su-30M2, SM2 fighter jets, multi-role fighter jets, were transferred to Belarus by Russian military-industrial complex. And you see those planes on your screen right now. And by many, according to many military experts, by the way, pilots themselves, Western ones too, Su-30s are very much underrated multi-role fighter jets, very much underrated, right? Although this is a bestseller. This plane is a bestseller of Russian military, Russian aerospace industry. Everyone wants Su-30s, by the way, because this platform can be easily modernized, right? It can carry a lot of weapon systems, not just for air-to-air combat, but air-to-ground, air-to-sea strikes, right? And there are hundreds of these planes are being sold all over the world, right? Su-30s are beasts as a multi-role fighters, right? And Belarus received another batch of these planes. Great news, by the way. You see, Russian military-industrial complex is doing quite good, and I think there is a ways to grow further. You know, there is definitely possibilities to go bigger, right? Because after all, we are still nowhere close to levels of Soviet Union, by the way. So there is always opportunity to reach further heights. Also, a couple of more news difference for this news segment. Algeria declares a French colonial rule a crime, calls for apology and reparations, and I think very many people will find it quite understandable decision on part of Algeria. France bears legal responsibility for its colonial past and the tragedies it caused, which is true, obviously, and it's not just France, but all the other empires, by the way. What about British Empire? I mean, compared to France, British Empire was like 10 times bigger, 10 times worse, right? So, and many others, Spain was an empire at the time. Even Netherlands were empire, by the way, in certain ways, right? Netherlands was a big time presented in Africa, in global South, right? It's now maybe a tiny country in Europe, but it's just now, right? Spain, Portugal, you think why Brazilians speak Portuguese, by the way. In one whole, why whole of, practically whole of Latin America is speaking Spanish. Anyways, France called this decision on part of Algeria manifestation of the hostility, which is quite interesting. When France is talking about hostility of others, that's quite laughable stuff, isn't it? When Western country, generally speaking, is talking about hostility of others, I mean, world is laughing, man. World is laughing. Maybe Western public is being indoctrinated in this nonsensical propaganda, right? That West is good, everyone else is just bad, right? West is a garden, and the rest of the world is barbarians and stuff like that. And maybe majority of the public in the West is happy to believe in this crap, right? But in reality, things are very different. And if you ask me, Western world is there anything but garden? Truly, man. I have seen a lot of videos about Western world. I have read a lot of stuff about Western world, and it's anything but garden. for sure, right? And decline of the West will only accelerate, and all because of the Western ruling class. If Western public want to blame anyone for that, it's themselves. They should blame themselves first of all because they allow such a morons to exist in their elites, in their ruling class, and they can then blame this ruling class too, right? No one else. Um, and this topic, by the way, France and Algiers confrontation is definitely something that we should pay attention to because, after all, it was a France that initiated mainly NATO attack on Libya, right? And we know what happened to Libya, by the way. Humans were sold, and maybe to nowadays, same is happening. People were sold on markets after Gaddafi's regime was destroyed by NATO. And that was initiated by France in many ways, right? By France. And relationships between Algeria and France is escalating for quite a while. These relationships were never good, but lately we are observing escalation big time. Algeria understands that France might try to do with them what they did with Libya, and Algeria is preparing, they are arming and spending quite a lot on military stuff. Russia is one of the main suppliers for Algiers air force, ground forces, and so on. I don't know about Navy, but air force and ground forces for sure. Russia is assisting big time. Uh, Russian military experts are on the ground, I'm quite sure about it, and they're training Algerian troops in modern warfare, as they should, right? And so one day this knowledge and these additional defense capabilities might actually serve people of Algeria big time. Although we should also keep in mind that there is some serious tensions between Algeria and Morocco too. And France, this time around, France and its backers might not attack Algeria directly, but try to destabilize Algeria through other means, right? By escalating relationships between Algeria and its neighbors. Also a possibility there, especially with Morocco, by the way. Morocco is occupying certain territories that does not belong to Morocco, and Algeria is very clear that those territories should be free. And there are some other issues too, by the way. It's a whole different story. And France is retaliating for now, or France is escalating, let's say this way, with Algeria also for now on a political level. But I think military hostilities between the sides also are not far away. Also a possibility. Just a couple of months ago, I believe France denounced or annulled their own legislation, according to which citizens of Algeria would get permanent residency in France automatically. One of the reasons why there is so many migrants from Algeria, in France, is that legislation that was giving citizens of Algeria permanent residency, right? And this legislation was annulled by Paris, I believe, like several months ago or something. And of course, this adds fuel into this confrontation between the two. So definitely worth to pay attention to developments there. Also, by the way, China hits back on US military industrial complex for providing weapons to Taiwan. Latest transfer of weapons is worth 11 billion, by the way, that Washington approved them to be delivered to Taiwan, this Chinese island. And Beijing did not take too long, isn't it, until retaliation. And dozens of U.S. companies, among them Northrop Grumman, heavyweight, was targeted with the sanctions. And yes, this is not all. I'm quite sure Beijing will come up with ways to strike back in ways that U.S. leadership would not ever even think that was possible. Yeah, Chinese are clever, man, very clever, right? After all, they build one of the oldest civilizations in this world for a reason. And US is messing with the wrong guys there. US is messing with the wrong guys, man. It's just factual, right? A better US or the Europe is doomed. So, okay, there is no point to talk about Europe, but US still has theoretical chances to maintain some relevance on geopolitical scale, in my personal opinion, and to maintain this relevant importance. What US has to do is has to build their US has to build as good relationships as possible with India first of all, and Russia first of all, right? With India and Russia, because with this triangle of potential cooperation, dear friends, it sound good because I'm not sure if there is no technical issues. Hopefully, sound is good. Clearly, there is video is not good, as far as I can tell. And what I was saying. So yes, best US can do, US ruling class, if they were clever enough, is to build good relationships with India, Russia, a number of other countries. But instead of that, US is destroying relationships, right? And if US was doing other ways, if US was actually trying to be adequate with New Delhi, with Moscow, with some others, that will allow, that will create opportunity uh, to keep Beijing in check. Not necessarily now, by the way. I mean, Beijing nowadays is acting absolutely understandably, predictably. There is no issues, right? But to make sure that in 30 years from now, in 50 years from now, things gonna stay good, this kind of cooperation would be helpful. But Washington is not there yet, right? U.S. ruling class is still dreaming about being a dominant force in this world, while that train has gone, by the way, a long time ago. And U.S. never ever gonna be dominant force, or Western ruling class never ever gonna be dominant force in this world. They should realize this by now, but seems like they have some mental issues, right, with objective, and cannot face the objective reality, something like that. Anyways, a few more news, dear friends. Thailand and Cambodia agree to a ceasefire effective from today, 27th of December. Hopefully, this time around, the ceasefire will actually last, although there is a risk of further escalation is still there. And also, I want to end this news segment, dear friends, on this report that Moscow warns against travel to lawless Germany. That's quite a headline there, isn't it? Moscow wants to travel in lawless Germany. I wonder why is that. Um, I'll give you, but I guess majority of our community already understands why, and it's not just a reason. Is not just I think there is serious technical issues. My apologies, dear friends, if quality of video or the sound is not good. I'm gonna end in about a minute time. I will just share with you this report that the Russian Foreign Ministry has advised their country's citizens to refrain from traveling to Germany, warning that they could face persecution on the national grounds there. During their briefing on Thursday, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova drew attention to repeated incidents in which Russians were subjected to unjustified harassment by Berlin under the pretext of EU sanctions imposed over their Ukraine conflict. And it's not just that, by the way. It's not just the Russia hate that is reason why Russians thank you, Alexander G, for for letting me know that video is with issues, but sound is good. I guess notebook. This notebook is dying. By the way, I have to buy new. But yeah, I have an old one. I have an old notebook that might work better, but that one has some technical issues too, man. But maybe it will be better to switch to that because that older one is actually more powerful than this new one. So maybe that old one at least will not overheat or something. So yes, Svetlana Vladimirovna is commenting Levan means laptop. Yes, I'm calling it notebook, by the way. So yeah, laptop. So I will try to deal with this technical stuff, by the way, as soon as I'm in a position to. But anyways, my apologies for some technical issues whenever we are facing some difficulties in this regard. And yes, I think Russian foreign ministry definitely is on point there. Russian citizens have been harassed all around the Western world. There is so many videos, by the way, from Europe, especially from different European countries, when Russian citizens were harassed, not just by official institutions in the West, but by ordinary people. Russian people being refused to be served in the cafes and the restaurants just for being Russians, by the way. That's what is happening in Europe, right? Maybe this is not happening in millions of instances, right? But it does happen, and that's why even if I had the opportunity right now to travel to Europe with my family, I would refuse, right? Because one such instance, by the way, when you with your family went to a cafe and you being harassed or insulted or not served just because you are from Russia, that one instance might spoil entire your holiday, isn't it? So what is the point then? And also, by the way, situation with criminality in the Europe is also very bad, isn't it? In central London, gangs are running around with machetes and stuff, right? I have seen numerous videos of that, and it's not just London, but elsewhere too. There is certain areas in France, in Paris, by the way, that you better don't go, man, ever, right? Because it's like a horror movie scenes there. There is such a similar happening in other cities, right, all over the Western world. So it's just not safe. I think it's objectively not safe, man. Mel is commenting, why do you believe those figures from Ukraine? What figures? You mean level of desertions? By the way, Kiev regime stopped publishing a level number of open criminal cases due to desertions in 2023, isn't it? If I remember correctly. Last official data from Kiev regime itself was from 2023, if I remember correctly, and or 2024. This year they were not publishing nothing, and officially, Kiev regime has opened like 300,000 cases. 300,000 cases. That's last official data from Kiev regime itself. So I mean, you might don't believe anything you want, but the situation for Kiev regime's forces is only deteriorating, isn't it? Since 2003, 2004. This year was absolutely devastating for Kiev regime's forces. So I actually believe that desertion is a major issue for Kiev regime's troops. A low morale, desertion. Yes, it is an issue. But anyways, dear friends, of course, I'm just sharing information. I'm sharing news information that is published in Russian media outlet and the news that I find interesting. I'm sharing my personal take on this or that development. That's about it, right? It's always up to individuals, right? Up to members of our community what they will make of this report, right? I'm not saying that, trust me, 1,000,000%, I know better than you know. That's how it is for sure. And no, I'm not pretending to be freaking expert in anything, right? And I demand nothing. It's always up to each individual, each member of our community, to decide, is this information is interesting, worth attention, and what is most important, every news that I share, literally every news that I share, every report, you can double check, triple check, and you will find a number of numerous sources, right? I might use one or two, but you will find numerous sources. It's always like that, right? So that's how it is, man. As long as the information can be double checked, triple checked, it's all good. Then it's up to our subjective understanding or the reading of the development, isn't it? So, okay, dear friends, there was no super chat on Rumble. I checked it right now. Let me check. Boosty. So no questions, no comments from Boosty, and I will check right now, dear friends. Also, Telegram, if Anna dropped a screenshot. No, maybe either she's busy and did not see, did not manage to check PayPal, or maybe there was no question or the comment through PayPal too. So, dear friends, that's about it for today's live stream. Then, once again, my apologies for bad video quality is unfortunately not good, but members of our community commented several times that sound was okay, more or less okay. So at least sound was good. Thank you all for your attention. Have a wonderful day, great weekend, and if you will have a time, join stream tomorrow. We're gonna have a big community chat tomorrow at 3 p.m. Most definitely 3 p.m. Although I will post an announcement about it on my YouTube channel, YouTube page, community page, and also on my Telegram and Twitter X page, as I always do, some 30 minutes before stream starts. So it most likely will be 3 p.m. tomorrow, but I will drop an announcement anyways. Thank you all for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.